Hello, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on The Expanse, Season 6, Episode 6, episode called Babylon's Ashes, that just so happens to be the series finale of the show. For now, it's at Paul's point. Although, if they continue the story in another form, this could remain the series finale always. We don't know it yet. But anyway, I am joined here by some special guests who will take over for me after I resign immediately. First, joining me, as always, Darrin from These Reviews. Thanks so much for joining, Darrin.
Oh, so excited. I watched quite a few shows this week, and on rewatching The Expanse, it was by far the best thing I could have enjoyed. It was so much fun to go back into it. What do you ask for from the finale? It's what Expanse gives you in this. So I can't wait to jump in and break it all down.
All right, and also joining us once again, Rob from Smirking Reviews. Rob, thanks so much for joining.
Very happy to be here talking about this finale. This is a show that really helped out my channel early on in the days of Smirking Gun Reviews and now Smirking Reviews. And it's weird that we're at this point because we all know it's not over, but there's a definite feeling of like we're moving on to some other things that are going to take us to some really unexpected places. And I hope anybody who watches this from my channel, I will be doing some sort of season 6 discussion over there. Just it might not be right away. So happy to be here talking about it for now.
Cool. So yeah, I saw this tweet. I don't know if it's legitimate. I think it was. It was supposed to be like a tweet from the authors of the novels who are also producers on the show, saying, "Please don't harass Amazon. Like they're good people." And they had liked their working relationship, and they said there's things that you don't know about and things that we're not allowed to talk about yet. So. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's legit, but yeah. Anyway, so as we kind of hinted at, I love this episode. I think it is a perfect way to end the show. Well, Paul's point for the show, and it's I think it's one of the best series finales of all time. I cried several times during it. For me, it was extremely satisfying, and it sounds like Darrin, from your introduction, that you also thought very highly of it. So, Rob, are you going to be the counterpoint here? That's a bit more sort of negative on this finale.
No, I mean I really enjoyed this. It's hard to talk about this and separate the critic from the fan in this because I just really loved this show when I finally got into it around season 3. And as much as I've said, like, I wish they were telling a different story, there's critically I can't complain about any of this really too much. I thought that this was a satisfying ending to what the carryover from season 5 and really season 4 too, kind of. I feel like 4, 5, and 6 are kind of that next big arc. But I really, really liked it. And even though I felt like there were boxes being checked, there was the boxes that we wanted to have checked. So, I mean, they gave us pretty much everything you could want in a series that definitely felt like there was so much more going on and we're teased with at the beginning of every episode, which I guess if I had to make one complaint, it's just like I'd rather just not know any of that, have as much of that first part set up for whatever we're doing next. A little less of it. If we're not going to really add to that, I would have liked to see hints of what they were doing, mainly that guy with the smile on his face and the proto molecule and everything like that. I feel like they gave us a little bit too much of it and a little less. I feel like it was taking away from the story of our characters going on now. but otherwise, I loved this.
Cool. No, that's good to hear. Yeah, I think that you're talking about how it sort of forms its own story. They say that books 1, 2, and 3 kind of that's their own part, and there's books 4, 5, and 6 are their thing, and then books 7, 8, and 9 are their thing. I find that book 3 is a little bit different than books 1 and 2 because they go into the ring space, and book 4 is kind of a standalone thing because they go to Illis or whatever. But I can kind of see that books 7, 8, and 9 are definitely like their own trilogy, like very formed. I think that well, in this case, seasons 4 and 5, 5 and 6 are like definitely paired together. Yeah, I just want to jump in the chat and say hello to everyone joining. Brandon, Admiral Creepy. Yeah, I think that's what Darrin called. Yeah. Admiral Duarte, so I just went with that because he was definitely being creepy in this episode. And also Alyssa, thanks so much for joining. Alyssa says, would have been the counterpoint if I was on. I still really liked it, but it's an 8 out of 10 for me. Not as epic as I wanted it to be. And you said you explained this on your live stream, which I haven't watched yet, so I wouldn't watch. I'm curious to why. But then again, of course, I'll be able to talk to you next week about it and tell you why you're wrong. I mean, get your opinion on the finale and the season as a whole. I also want to say hello to Belinda. It's been a really long time since I've seen you jump in the chat. Very good to see you. And Dina, good as always for joining, saying, just finished watching Pete Pepper's live stream. I'm going to max out on The Expanse tonight. Well, that's not a bad thing. Anyway, so yeah, and also before we get to Darrin, I also wanted to say that I've heard some negative opinions on the finale, and there's always there, but I don't know. I just very strongly disagree, especially with the ones who are being like extremely negative. Like I saw this one guy saying, "Oh, well, how come they didn't include this thing that happened in book 7 and this thing that happened in book 8?" I'm like, because they're only covering up to book 6. Like they can't cover all the way up to the end of the series in one season. That would be Game of Thrones season 8 style of rushing, which I'm very glad they didn't do, and we will get those future books. I'm sure we will. Anyway, Darrin, your thoughts on the finale?
Yeah, and I just got to throw out there is I do think we have to get something. I think Alyssa mentioned here that this will be the series ending, and the other books will be adapted in another form, possibly a sequel series. So this may be the end of The Expanse, and they may call it something else when it comes out. If they want to do a series, they may move. I mean, you got to figure the value this is to Alcon Entertainment. They still got 3 more books. They've got a strong fan base. They've got really quality writing. It does not get the recognition that it deserves, which is really the sad thing. Just looking out for the SAG Awards was mentioned, and of course, no Expanse, nobody from there.
The war shows always snub the Expanse. It's just not popular enough. It doesn't make enough money. It deserves all the awards that it never was even nominated for.
Yeah, I mean, my saying earlier, I've watched a lot of things. Of course, we've been talking Book of Boba Fett earlier before we went on. I even watched Eternals. I did check out the new Peacemaker, and it's like, they're so trounces, all of them. Yes. And yeah, it's the finale, and there's a lot of stuff that's come in, but this is the payoff for everything that they came in with us, and it was nonstop. We had action from beginning to end. We had surprises. Some of the stuff was expected. Some of it was not. Even the whole ending, how we came up, I had mentioned like, oh, if they're going to use the ring thing and just take out Marco, that's going to be an undercut unless they do something interesting with it. And this is how you do that. Everything was infused with emotion. That whole moment when Naomi's got to hit the button. I mean, it was really powerful, every bit here and there. And I'll agree with Rob, and probably I think Alyssa would be saying the same thing. The whole Laconia bit, we really could have lost. While there was some interesting things, it was almost too predictable, and the time just took away. From step 1, you're like, proto-molecule child. Okay. So we could have lost that. I think we even ended last season with the ring to Laconia is closed. Don't come in. I would have been very happy just jumping into wherever that was in book 7 and skipping any transition. So while interesting, that is the one pullback that I have on this, but I think everything else out really it paid off with action. It had a great conclusion with the Belchers and everything with the transportation union. And yeah, this is how you wrap something up, and with the beautiful final shot of the Rocinante just flying and disappearing out into space was just it. That's how you do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, God, I can't. There's something I wanted to respond to, but I forgot it. Oh well. But yeah, this, I think that's absolutely the correct way to end it. Yeah, I don't know. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump straight into this episode, and let's start with the Laconia bit.
Get it out of the way now.
Yeah, let's get it out of the way. I actually agree because I said this in my review. I read this. I remember. You probably remember me talking about the short story. How I read it. It really moved me. I thought it was great. I didn't think this adaptation was as good. I think it was a bit more rushed. You didn't get the nuance that was there in the book, which is more true for this storyline than the rest of the show. I think the rest of the show is a beautiful adaptation. And it's split up. I think splitting it up between the episodes also didn't help. I think this would have been better if they released it as like a short film or something, like a bonus special thing between, like, while we're waiting for this, book 7, 8, and 9 to get adapted. They could like do this, which is how the short story was released. It was released between book 6 and 7.
That would be a nice tease,
yes,
even to just tease us on a little bit more, yeah.
And I think it might have worked better as a continuous thing rather than being broken up. That being said, I didn't hate it. Like I still liked it. Particularly, So I don't know if you guys are disappointed, because we were talking last week about the what would happen to the little boy, and you were speculating he would turn into a monster and start like ripping people apart and catalyzing them. But he's just a boy, and it was more like a sort of Frankenstein-esque story where people were more freaked out about the fact that this dead boy has come back to life and with black eyes and can bleed black blood, but he's basically more or less the same guy. He's just a little different, a little change. And see, I thought the ending was very tragic, where the girl decides to just run off and let herself die because, hey, the dogs will fix me, so I'm fine. And I think the short story does a better job of pointing out the difference between her and her parents, is that her parents are from Earth, and they always talk about Earth, and they're like, oh, this is our home, where she feels like Laconia is her home, and she feels very distant from their earthly ideas or whatever. And so this idea of these dogs sort of feel more natural to her than they would to her parents, which is why her parents freaked out over, seeing their son brought back to life. So in a way,
but all splotchy and black-eyed like that does kind of like
yeah, she was
zombie-esque.
She was kind of overlooking the obvious, yes. But I buy that she would, and because she's a child, she doesn't really understand or have that baggage that adults would have. Sure. So I still found it a tragic ending, and I thought it was really creepy when we see from the little boy's eyes, and it looks like a protomolecule blue everywhere. Like, yeah, that creeped me out. So Darrin, I guess we'll start with you on this one. What do you think of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I gotta say, while I think it's kind of overall unnecessary, and I think the time could have been better spent, I mean, it wasn't horrible. It did tell its story while it's kind of expected. It does tie in specifically when we see why Marco kind of gets suddenly really shot down, of what, instigates that particular bit. So in a way, it does find a way to link back to the main story. Yeah, my biggest complaint was, again, it was just, to me, kind of predictable. It was like, oh, we'll see where this was going, kind of from step one, which is just the only thing. While it does shine the light on Laconia, and I do get that, the daughter doesn't think the same way that the parents do. And I didn't double check, but I think the brother and sister are actual brother and sister. They have the same last name,
Yes.
and they do look very similar. So that's kind of a cool little casting, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, outside of, again, introducing us to Admiral Creepy here, and giving us, a little link of why Marco kind of gets shut down at the last minute when he may not have been expecting it. Yeah, interesting, better of a side story, and we could have used just a few more scenes and a little bit more time spent with everything else out. But it was what we was, and I didn't hate it.
Yeah, just trying to jump in the chat real quick. Belinda says that it's clear that the book readers enjoy the strange dog stuff more. I appreciate seeing it, and I agree. And I think because I enjoyed it more, and I think that's actually a bad thing. If you need to read a book first in order to like it more, then it's not a perfect adaptation. But anyway, Rob, your thoughts on this?
Okay, so just to clarify, the Laconia stuff was from a short story.
Yes.
Okay, I did not know that. So putting that into context, I mean, I agree that would have been so much better as like a web series or something to get like people ready for the next season, and then maybe have a little bit of that sprinkled into the season, but not every episode, or maybe bookend it. Start and finish with something like that, like a lot of shows do. No, Breaking Bad did like that kind of stuff all the time. But I mean, yeah, I thought it was like Dee says, it's pretty predictable. But knowing now that it was a short story, I like that they contained all that. The Admiral Creepy, he reminds me of the guy who was dating Carol on The Walking Dead. I don't remember what that character's name was, but he reminds me of that.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about, but that guy wasn't nearly as creepy, though.
He just kind of, to me, he just kind of has that kind of everyman look. But I guess I just don't see the creepiness yet. But that's just me. But I mean, looking at when he's staring up at the ship, it is kind of weird how he's like that. I don't know. He says, and he has one of the most interesting lines in the show, though, when he talks to Marco. But we'll get into that, which made me go, okay, I understand why this is here. We need to have somebody who's the guy who's Marco is working with. So I did like that connection to it all. But again, yeah, if this had been some separate thing, I think I would have liked it a lot more.
Brandon in the chat mentions that they're twins. The brother and sister are twins, which is great. I actually always thought she was older, but girls age differently than the boys, so that would make sense. Thanks, Brandon.
Just want to mention Belinda from the chat, because Belinda has been a subscriber of mine for a while. She's the one who got me into The Expanse, and so here we are again. I feel like I definitely owe them a video on my channel, so I just want to make sure people like Belinda and know that that's happening still. So, but I appreciate seeing her in the chat here. It's great.
All right. So also in the chat, I see Devra says, I didn't read the novellas. Did they have the need to add the other novellas in previous series? They have. They have not added stuff to the short stories previously. They kind of sprinkled it in. They never really did a straight up adapt. Oh, they did with Bobby's storyline in season 4, because Bobby wasn't in book 4 at all. So they took a short story with Bobby Draper on Mars, and they completely changed it. It's like way better than the short story, in my opinion, because the short story is more about her nephew, but they made this storyline more about her, but it was based off of that short story. And then there's stuff like sprinkled in from Amos's background that we got in earlier seasons that wasn't in the main books. It was in the short stories. And I'm trying to... Kotazar for example, the scientist Kotazar who appeared in season 2, he was not in the novels. He was in the short story later on, so they sprinkled him in for who was in the short story. But he appeared. Actually, he didn't appear in the main books until these ones, until the Laconia stuff.
Was the Churn adapted with part of last season?
No, last season was mostly from book 5.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Churn tells his backstory. So it was based off the Churn, which I haven't read that yet. So I was missing the references with I think Eric was his name, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That was from the Churn.
Okay.
So yeah, so they sprinkled stuff from novellettas before. This is pretty much like the first time they've flat out like adapted one. Dina says that Duarte doesn't come off as creepy in the books, just very average. Yeah, creepy is not the word I would use to describe him. He's self-important, I would say. But I don't know, he is kind of creepy though with the pins. But anyway, so let's go ahead and jump over to the next storyline. Where are we at now? Let's talk about starts off with the strategic meeting when Holden proposes his plan B to their plan A of attacking Marco and stopping him. And if that didn't work, then they could try to take over Medina and take over the railguns. Now this is another change from the books, because in the books Holden's plan was plan A, and attacking Marco's fleet was just to distract him enough to give Holden enough time to set up the thing. But I think it did make it more interesting to have that chance of his thing just being a backup plan. And Ava Sorella specifically says to Holden that it's a miracle you've lived this long. Calling him very naive when you think, I think my plan's going to work, but I know the ring space. And it kind of turned out she was right a bit, that he was being a bit too optimistic. So what were you guys' thoughts on that, Rob? We'll start with you.
Sorry, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm hitting mute and not mute. I like this scene a lot. I think that this also kind of shows what we do later on with these three characters together when they're at a table again at the end of the episode. You've got Drummer and you've got Holden and Avasarala at the end talking about how to set up the trade stuff. Here we've got them almost like the beginnings of what was going to happen later, which is like loving to see Holden and Drummer connecting, him being so sincere in his thank you, which is one of the great things about all the characters, almost all the characters on this show, is their sincerity. One of the great things about what all these actors bring is such sincerity, and I love seeing this moment between them quite a bit. Also, just that whole time, it's kind of like she's congratulating them on the plans that and then the thank you. I really love it. I also just love so much about how controlled Kara G's performance always is as Drummer. How tight she seems to always be, and how focused she always seems to be in all of these scenes where she's looks like you can really see that she's taking everything in and carefully thinking about how she's going to proceed and talk to these people every time. Like when she speaks, it's always very carefully chosen words. And throughout this episode, in this scene and in the later scene, she just has such a great command of who she's becoming. Like when you look at how far she's come from being the second in command to, I forget his name. Another guy from
Darrin.
Fred Johnson.
Oh, right, yeah.
All that ways where she was just the person behind, the guy behind the guy back then, and we had so many characters that this journey, seeing her at the table with everybody else, this kind of weird motley crew of everybody that's been in this series at at a lot of the key players at this table now and later. And I just really dug the plan and how everybody was starting to work together. We started to get to see how that could work in this. So I just dug it quite a bit, and hopefully Darrin comes back from one of the rings. Again, he keeps falling right into the rings, man.
I like the part where the when the Martians is sort of like insulting Drummer and being saying like, oh, this is your belters doing in the first place as well, and they start arguing, and Alvasar was like, cut the shit, this is the kind of shit that's gonna get us all killed. So that was great. But yeah, you mentioned before how Drummer said that Holden's plan of was reminded him of like it was good. It sounded like something a Belter would come up with, and he said thank you. Like I love that moment too, because a lot of people wouldn't take that as a compliment, saying that you're like a Belter, but Holden does. Like he knows that is a huge compliment because Belters are established, spacefaring people. So to say that a plan like that is worthy of a Belter is actually a huge compliment.
Also, it helps set up more of how he is able to work with other people. It shows just another example for them to pile on of who's been a good, go-between between people that are fighting with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Here he is, back from the ring space. We thought the alien entities got you, Darrin. Oh, it's frozen. Okay. I don't know. Right. Yeah. So the other thing I was going to say is the you mentioned Drummer, how long way she's come from being Fred Johnson's second, because in the books that's all this character ever was, but the show made her a much more important character. It sort of grafted other book characters into her, and it's because of Kara G's performance. It wasn't their original intention. She impressed them so much.
So very much an Aaron Paul kind of moment where they throw him off in season 1 of Breaking Bad, and the guy just nails it so well. They go, we got to do something better with this. That's definitely one of those times where I would say how shows like The Walking Dead sometimes do good, where they can add something to a character that's not there on the page and give them a greater part, something that's way better than what is on the page, and that's rare. And so that's really cool that they were able to, find the right person and somebody give her a meatier part. And also, I guess I didn't really say anything about Avasarala, talking about the miracle he's lived this long. And really how, again, that also shows his relationship with her and how he just keeps being the person that she can count on, and is always there to kind of give let's take a step back from all the politics and just really say what needs to be said kind of guy. Instead of I don't have to watch what I say because I'm in kind of that middle of the road. I can tell everybody what they really need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I heard from Darrin he's trying to reconnect, having some internet issues. So he's trying to reconnect to a hotspot. So I'm just gonna delay a bit to wait for him. Hopefully he can come back a bit. But yeah, but what did you make of Avasarala's? She kind of thought that the plan kind of sucked. Like when they said oh, we're gonna attack Marco's forces, she's like, well, that's a 50-50 years to evenly match, so I don't like it. I like having the advantage.
Yeah, I think that's typical politician type stuff. It just they it has to be a sure thing for them more than the greater the odds, the greater the risk. So they're always. I think it's just that kind of mentality. Plus, she's kind of out of her depth, but because we've got this character that we've loved and we want to kind of see her take a more role into forefront. We don't want to just have Avasarala sitting way in the back, for this finale. We've had episodes and seasons where characters are so far away from each other. We need to feel everybody's closeness and proximity, but she doesn't have all the knowledge that's there. And I think it's just kind of it just shows here what everybody's strong points are, and hers are not in military to me as much as other people that have seen in combat. Like
I don't know.
she's
I
pretty
wouldn't-
savvy, but she's
Yeah.
still like
But I wouldn't say she's exactly wrong in this.
no,
because
she's pointing at-
because she's actually kind of right, because their plan to get Marco does in fact fail, and Holden's backup plan like barely succeeds.
Sure, but I mean that's TV. I mean that's what was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know,
Nah,
the first plan
yeah.
never works. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but I think that does vindicate her for being
sure. No,
skeptical.
I don't think she even needs vindication. I just mean like,
Mm.
you know, everybody's got valid points in this. It just how do the writers make somebody right? You know who's going to be right and wrong, and how do they at least make whoever is right make that make sense?
Yeah.
But the show has also been a lot about not everything is about being just right or wrong.
Yeah. But I think it does show that the others in the room were being a bit too optimistic, particularly Holden.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But I mean, there were like she put them in a better position from having drummer support though, because at first they wanted to go in without her, and where she was like totally against. So now they had like a stronger chance. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on while Darrin is trying to reconnect. So hopefully he'll be able to join to get in the next part of the conversation. But let's move on to the build up to the battle, seeing the Rosnate fly out. We got some really see. This is what I love about this episode. It wasn't like it was all plot; it was all action or all resolution. We got beautiful character moments that I felt like really earned all the stuff the show has done previously, particularly with Clarissa. Like, I loved what they've done with her this season. I think they completely justified bringing this character back. And I love seeing Naomi actually kind of embrace Clarissa a bit, saying, oh, wait, here he is. Darrin!
Apparently, Duarte was not very happy with the trash talking I was doing. I'm sorry, Admiral, not creepy at all.
Yeah, worried that the ring gate entities got you. So good
that would be very uncomfortable for about that long.
So, so I started to move on to the next scene, but if you have anything you want to throw out there real quick about the Ava Sorella, the strategic meeting, whatever.
No, I'm pretty sure you guys covered all of the bits. It was really, and I think you hit the main one, that moment where Drummer is like, it's actually a good plan, make a Belter proud. He's like, thank you so much. It's like, especially the two of them who we haven't really seen that kind of connection between. I think at the end of 5, we were all kind of hoping when Drummer turns around and kind of saves their bacon that we would get a little communicate between the two of them. And we didn't really get that. And while there was sort of respect, there was also that kind of, and that with Naomi kind of in the middle of them, there was sort of that little negative energy and stuff. And for here, it's gone. And the fact that the two of them not only are connecting here, but we're seeing moving forward, it was just one of those beautiful little moments to see.
Absolutely. All right, so I actually wanted to jump in the chat, and I got a super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat from Chriso. Asks, what's your opinion on how Marco felt when the MCRN Splinter group left him dry when he was expecting another ship? Well, that's something I was going to get to later on, but since you gave a super chat, I'll go ahead and answer your question here. I think I was actually a bit, because this didn't happen in the books, Marco did not expect reinforcements or anything more from Duarte, and I think he's stupid too, so I kind of didn't like it, because I think he was being a bit naive or dumb to expect, but I did, because it's obvious what Duarte's response was, and I kind of liked what Duarte said to him. Was like, you were a nice distraction, but I'm done with you. But I think Marco was kind of dumb for not knowing that would be his response, because of course it would. But anyway,
absolutely. Yeah, I didn't know if we were all gonna talk about this.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob. Yeah, something to say.
No, I mean, I anytime to get to see Marco's like confidence go in the when you see it on his face when they say it, and yeah, the guy talking to him about like, sorry man, but like I got gods to kill, like,
Yeah.
and just also like again like everybody's you know for all his plans, these people were, it felt like they were always going to just leave him high and dry, and it just it's fitting that this is part of like how it all falls apart, is that the people that he's working with don't even care about their partnership with him. They're just cutting him loose as soon as they see fit to do it, and I like that. We get to see the fall of this character and how it just all starts to as well as planned as some of this was. It just I think that was the moment where maybe a part of Marco was like, oh, this is going to be a little bit harder than I thought.
Well, and I think it strikes at his narcissism perfectly, because to him, it's all about, his goal and his war and leading that and running the people. I mean, and that's really how he runs the ship. And it's the nice thing through this episode. We sort of see that falling apart and those little supports fracturing around him. And of course he's like, well, yeah, of course, Duarte's going to be said more stuff. I got guns. He's going to send me ships. He's going to, I'm sorry, what? He's, hello? Hello? Is it, hello? So, it's one of those nice little moments, like you say, Rob, just at the end, getting stuff cut out from underneath him. It is a little beautiful bit.
And Silver Scale in the chat says Marco can't conceive that anyone could outsmart him, which I think is true. Arrogance is definitely one of his big flaws. But anyway, let's get back to the scene I started talking about before with back in the Versanate, where we get some nice character moments between Clarissa and Naomi, where Naomi's actually starting to warm up to Clarissa, and I like how she sort of encourages her to, hey, why don't you go repair this? And Amos is like, hey, I thought that's my job. And she's like, well, you notice how she's calling you boss the way that you used to call me boss? Like, that's a nice callback, and it's nice that she's sort of helping Clarissa earn her keep. And then later during the meal scene where she, tells Holden flat out, like, the reason why I was keeping Clarissa at arm's length because I was jealous of the fact that she's getting a chance to wash the blood off her hands, because that's what I wanted for Philip. But she's like recognizes and realizing it and moving past it and seeing it as a good thing. Beautiful moment for me. One of the great character moments. Rob, did you have any thoughts on that one?
This is really good character stuff here. Really, really good character stuff. And I mean, I'm sure that there's videos of mine from season 3 reviews where I was cursing Clarissa Mao and just wishing just the worst possible things to happen to her. And when you can have the writing be that good to turn your opinion around on somebody, just like it would take to get people that you work with on a ship to come around, that we are the same. We're looking at it the same as the Rossi crew. We're all skeptical. Even, Amos's optimism on the subject, I don't think can convince 100% of us that just because he's got her back from a long time ago, there was always still that kind of chance that maybe, but they really, like I said, the writing is so spectacular that they gave her such an organic turnaround that felt natural, and now she's just right in there, mixed in with the crew. All the emotions that are in this scene that are just, nobody's blubbering and nothing's over the top. You could even say that a lot of these scenes are in other episodes of the show, which is really great. These kind of just simple conversations that they have, and it also kind of changes like that whole last meal thing. Like this is the shawarma. This is the shawarma scene in Avengers before the battle. They were smart enough to eat first and then get into the fight. Have a good last meal, have some good camaraderie, and get into it. Just really, really good stuff. I can't believe how much I like Clarissa Mao now, and her interactions now. Like this, everybody needed to come together in this, and so Naomi coming, to her aid and talking about the boss stuff, and it didn't make me cry or anything, but it was really emotional. It was really sweet. And again, I talked about sincerity before. There's so much freaking sincerity that these characters are so likable, and even some of the bad guys have been really good on this because of how sincere the writing is and the character delivery. And so when you have great acting and great writing, you get sections like this that could be in scenes like this are in tons of series finales. But again, it's how the Expanse shows that they're different and on a different level than a lot of those shows, and how they pull off those moments that are in everything and then give you the Expanse way of doing it, which is always at a higher level than almost everything out there.
Sorry, jumping right in on that, Rob. Yeah, you know how Discovery would have done this? And we all know how Discovery would have done this because we've seen it in every Discovery episode. This would have been a 10-minute long single speech about emotion and love and family bringing together. And this show doesn't need any of it because it's all payoff. The whole arc between Naomi and Clarissa that starts here and goes throughout the episode, that's a beautiful turnaround. It's them putting the past behind and moving forward. We've had those big discussions of who are we fighting for? Ultimately, it's the person that's going to have your back. And that it starts here and it reinforces throughout the whole rest of the episode. And you don't have to have the big statements. I think that's the nice thing. Not only do we have these emotional moments and these little connections, they're all very subtle. They're all simple. It's these little connections, these little statements. It's nothing is overly done. Naomi says why she didn't do it quietly, briefly to Holden. He's like, I love you for doing that. Boom. That's all settled. We have the little discussion between the boss bit that you had mentioned about, Naomi talking to Amos about that. And that's something great as an audience that we can enjoy because we remember that. I remember the first thing when the connection between Naomi and Amos, and it was like, oh yeah, this is like an older brother who would die for this person, and knows that she's in charge and he's the beast and she's the aimer. And just she turns him loose and he goes in that direction, and seeing that connection with Clarissa, who, yes, like Rob, I couldn't stand initially. And now I love every little bit of a scene. It's the payoff, but it's not big. We just have Amos going, I'm going to go down there because you're the mechanic and you can handle it. And her little statement back, which I had to write down, for someone who says they don't want to be a hero, you sure end up being one a lot. That's it. And it's just that. And then they go in and eat and share a meal and you get a couple of the little back and forth, and maybe built even more because Clarissa's like, finds out she's got 5 years to live, which is a big surprise. What's the first thing she does? I'm going to go cook everyone a meal. Enjoy these moments. This is why we do things. And it's all wrapped up here in a scene that takes us longer to talk about than they deliver to us, which is that's good writing right there.
But what Discovery would have done is that it would have had a bunch of characters that we barely know and that have shown to have like barely any sort of on-screen chemistry or any camaraderie and be like, oh, we love each other. Oh, look, we're bare family. Oh, look at us. A lot of talk, telling and not showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that show is way too overly sentimental. And we all talking about the feelings of, crying over
Don't
it. Don't
tell me why I should feel. Yes. Let the characters feel it, and I will tear up all by myself.
Exactly. And yeah, the moment where she had where she found out she had 5 years to live, like yeah, that was pretty powerful stuff, and how that was her first reaction is to have this, but that whole like dinner scene, the coming together as a family, like it showed that they were becoming this new family, even with the new members of Clarissa and Bobby, that they were becoming this new family, and the missing member as well, not being there. And it reminded me a lot of the scene in season 2 where they enjoyed the meal with Miller for the first time, when Miller and Amos were having their dispute, and they sort of let things go, and Miller joined in, and they enjoyed the meal together. I think it was, for me, that's what it reminded me of, and it was just a nice moment. It was a great thing to have in the finale, and I love how this was before the big battle. And it kind of gave you that ominous feeling of, will there be someone who's missing from this group after the battle's over?
Yeah. No. I mean, it gives you that emotional arc, and so everything else is charged. And what do you want with any conflict? You want to feel the emotion. You want to feel the danger. I don't know what's going to happen. And by having this, I think you're right. It totally makes the rest of the episode go, oh, who else has a bad internet history? No, I'm kidding.
But I do want to address Dina in the chat that says, I prefer Clarissa's storyline in the book. Her quick redemption was really off for me. I agree as far as book 3, season 3 is concerned. But as far as book 6 goes, and season 6, I think season 6 is handling a redemption arc much better, and it's coming off much stronger. It's kind of making up for it. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump over to the next thing, which is we get the fleets engage Marco's fleet. Now it starts off with this nice moment with Avasarala coming on board, talking to the captain of the ship and saying like, "Oh, I'd feel more comfortable if you were in the back." And she's like, "No, I need to command." Like again, was talking to her command style. She needs to be hands on. And that guy was just bitching like, "Oh, it's a shame like more belters come, hardly any belters come." And Avasarala is like, "Well, what we did was too little, too late. Like we're lucky to have the belters we do have." And I love that she has that recognition. She has that she's able to recognize that. And then of course we see the fleets engage the Pella, but it's not really the Pella that Marco was disguised. And this wasn't in the book, so this surprised me. This is a nice. I think someone disagreed with me, but I think it showed that Marco actually was a good strategist, that he's a good tactician, that he's able because that was a really slick move to sort of fake his ship, and he's known to have those like deceptive tactics, I think, throughout his run in the show, and I think that is one thing that he's good off, and it really paid off here because Drummer's fleet thought they were fighting the smaller of the fleets, but it turned out to have the big ship that just laid waste to her fleet instantly, which was a hugely powerful scene, particularly seeing like Drummer's ship completely shot up, a giant hole on the side where she's sitting, and like most of her crew died, and she's willing to like do a suicide run just to get back at Marco, but Walker beats her to it. Was such a powerful moment. I love like, oh, we had the same idea. I just got there first, yeah, and just crashes into the ship. So amazing, such a powerful sequence. I absolutely loved it. Darrin, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Talk about starting to give you all the things you want. And yeah, knew that something wasn't going to go right. The fact they're following the Pella, I'm just like, that doesn't feel right. So in a way, it kind of went almost like you expected / feared it would go. But the deceptive tactics to me are totally in line with Marco's style. His lane is to get to the ring. He can't do a full burn because it would look like cowardice. And also you can only go as fast in a fleet as your slowest ship. Mm-hmm. If he wants to keep everyone together and keep the power of the numbers, he can only go as fast as whatever the slowest ship is. So it makes sense why the plan can effectively work. But the idea that in the midst of this, he's doing half of this all disguised as something else, that was beautiful. God, that shot from inside Drummer's ship. I mean, the whole combat sequence was beautiful. We talked about their spending of their effects money, and it was in the first episode and the last episode. Wow. I mean, this was just like bit A of the rest of the episode for the beauty that they did with this. I was terrified for Drummer. We definitely felt could have lost that shot with the whole open side of her ship, and she's ready to go. And yeah, when Walker was ready to, made the choice to go in, that was, I was hooting and hollering in my living room. It was really just a beautiful bit to see. So, I think it was a nice done bit, and I think I love how it sort of ended also, where we get to the damage. I mean, it's a whole section. While the Pello wins the battle, it doesn't leave unbloodied, and in fact, we also at that point lose Rosenfeld. Who dies when Walker, well, not on Walker's impact, but I guess a secondary explosion within the ship kind of went off, which again is just that another moment for Philip to see how is his dad going to react and what else is the cost for whatever they're trying to do. So it was a beautifully emotional bit, and it linked us to, kind of these next steps, I think also beautifully well as well.
All right, so I just have to point out in the chat because Brandon was saying that he had to look up what Walker was saying, the drummer, because he spoke in, Belter, but I didn't know what he was saying. I didn't look this up, but apparently he was saying good hunting, which I didn't know that because that matches up nicely with the scene with Bobby and Amos later. That's actually, that's actually pretty awesome. So anyway, and Dina says RP Walker, loved that guy, and I did as well. And I talked about in my review how impressive that is because this guy barely appeared. I'm sure he had less than like 20 minutes of screen time, and he was so awesome, and you really feel for him when he dies. It's a great death. Anyway, Rob, get your thoughts on this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I wanted Drummer to, well, I mean, first off, live through this whole thing so that she can, marry me. I knew that somebody was going to have to, I knew that this first plan wasn't going to go well just by story structures and how things work in story. So I was very, very afraid for her in this scene. And because it's so well done, like we keep saying, like, I'm watching the space battles in this, and I'm just so freaking riveted. And I watch a lot of stuff that I've seen tons of space fights, and they're fun and they're cool. Star Wars stuff is really interesting, and there's a lot of fun stuff happening in a lot of those. But this is so realistic looking that I feel like I'm not just sitting on my couch watching a show. I'm watching something that's going on, that I could see happening, and it's really, really cool. I love the spinning guns. I'm just gonna nerd out about that for a second. Rail guns are really cool looking on screen. And yes, the shot with Drummer from behind where they want you to not quite know, and then when she moves, you're breathing. I breathe again. But then when they keep panning and then they show that open hole, I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman does not even care that it's there. She just automatically collects herself and starts processing what needs to be done. And the part about him taking on, doing what he does, what I like is that there's no scene of them going, don't you do it, it's my turn, I've got to go, you've got to live. They do that so much. No, he just goes. And then we get the message of, yeah, I'm sorry, but we didn't have time for a conversation, and I know we're on the same page, but sorry, I'm going to beat you to it. That's his glory, and I just love that because, again, they take something that could be these tropes and it's a better way.
But I think that was sorry, just to interrupt. I think that was also his way of saving her life because he knew that she had more important things to do than he did.
Yeah, he's on his way out. He's heard the report. He's clearly dying and he knows the score. And then the Rosenfeld thing, like I'm just happy that this wasn't sometimes these are somebody goes to do something to sacrifice themselves and it fails and it breaks your heart. We don't need any more heartbreak right now. What we needed was a confirmed hit at least, and we got it. And Rosenfeld's death, I mean, I feel like the character may only exist to be the last kind of thing that needed to happen for Philip. I did not expect it, and I really could have. I did not. I knew that Marco had to go down, but I did not know how they were going to get there. So Rosenfeld's death was, I think, at least important for the character of Philip. She was, a character that I kind of wish was developed a little bit better, because that actress Kathleen Robertson, I think is her name. She's been around for a while, and so I guess there's no small parts, right? That's the saying. And if her part at least gave a character motivation later on for something else, then it's nice to see that. But at least, Jummer might not be at the end of this episode, well, in the big fight at the end, but at least she gets to play a huge part in the future.
Yeah, look, I'm not familiar with the actress who played Rosenfeld. I hadn't seen her before, and I actually thought that this, well, especially because in the books this character is totally different and barely did anything, so I thought this character had a much bigger part than I expected, and I was really impressed that this is the henchman to the villain. This is the bad guy. And yeah, I felt kind of sad when she died. It was kind of affected me. And I thought that is impressive storytelling right there. That you can have someone who's kind of despicable and doesn't mind like leaving, and the Belters are said to protect, leaving them to starve just to protect themselves and supporting Marco and all of this despicableness. Yet you feel for her. And I think that's what, as you said, her death was a big sort of movement in Philip's storyline to get him to reconsider his position, but it's well earned the way that she's like, I don't want to go, and then dies. Like, you feel for her, and that's just so powerful.
For sure.
I think you're on mute, Darrin.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Especially when he comes up to his father afterwards and has the whole, but she had a family, she had a bit, and his kind of dismissal in a way, it's kind of reminiscent about him worrying about his friend that he shot and that he had a family. And she's like, yeah, we'll give him something and so on. Just seeing how each loss just is given up as to the cause. I think it was beautiful. And yeah, that surprise and fear, I think, was so beautifully captured. Is it bad? I don't want to go. I mean, it was just, how can you not feel for that? And I think because also, while she may have been the henchman, she was never really villainous. I mean, she was trying to do the best to support her captain, to get Philip there, to try and get them to move on and be their best and do. I think she believed in the cause.
Well, and she had her own ambitions. To be
of course, for sure. I mean, not to in any way kind of make a saint out of her or anything like that. But I think that does, because she didn't do anything despicable to make us really hate her as a character. And so I think it gives that humanity, that moment of humanity at the loss. I think it allows it to impact us more, because we don't have to overcome some like, well, yeah, but she killed 30 children on series,
Yeah. Nothing that bad. Yeah, but she just supported Marco, who killed millions of people on Earth.
I mean, they could have made her like a spy for Duarte or something, but I'm glad they didn't.
Oh yeah, no, I agree that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, what else could they really do for this character other than something like that? The character that supposedly on the boss's side until like some 11th hour turn where it's like, no, this is what's really going on, and No, that's too much for this kind of show. So the character, at least she had an important impact on one of the other characters to finally make the move they need to make.
And she was, as I mentioned in another stream, she was shown as like the smarter one. They really supported Marco. So you also see her death as a big blow to him, even if he doesn't recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, yeah, because he definitely needed her to support him. I mean, he can still do it, but well, I think we're probably going to get to a good answer right here with the super chat question.
Yes, yeah, just to get to that super chat from Clarissa again, saying, I think she was just the female version of Marco's cold, calculated personality manifest. Yeah, maybe, but as I said, I think she's smarter than Marco. Honestly, I think that she was, because Marco let his ego get in the way, and she never really did. Like, she had her ambitions, but she didn't like throw or like put all their plans at risk just to kill your old ex-girlfriend's boyfriend.
Well, I think she was a believer, and again, I think that was another thing that her loss impacted Philip, is this is someone who did believe in the cause, and even that loss is suddenly regretted in the moment that it's about to go. You know, for her, I think she could see the larger picture, and her strength was able to move the pieces in that direction. She wasn't the leader. She was the one that facilitated that conclusion being made. She understood the larger pictures and where everybody needed to be and how she could facilitate that.
The power behind the throne.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
And Brandon in chat says, I wonder why she supported a narcissistic asshole like Marco, because she was an opportunist, and she saw that he had the power, and she saw an opportunity. So, and plus, I think she believed in the cause of the belt as well.
Yeah,
that as well. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk about this more, but we got to keep things moving. Let's go ahead and move over to the big Rosnate's attack on the ring. Now, I've read, as I mentioned before, I've read some negative opinions on the finale, some I very strongly disagree with, but none do I disagree with more than the opinion that this space battle was a giant disappointment. That person is objectively wrong, I'm sorry to say.
Just a fact.
It's fact. Just stating the facts here. This was arguably the best space battle on the entire show. A show filled with great space battles, and the seeing all the tiny little ships. I love how they didn't really tell you the plan, because at the start, Holden's like, "Yeah, we'll get to the plan later," but he doesn't. We see it in action, where the plan is to get through past the rail guns is to dilute it with so many freaking targets all the targets. Most of them are like unmanned, like empty ships, and they have all these distractions so that the people can sneak past and get in and assault the rail guns on foot. And God damn, this is, as someone mentioned in chat earlier, how it was a really exciting sequence, seeing the Rosinante like running from it, and we see Clarissa actually step up and do her part and save the ship. I actually thought they were going to kill her off, even though it didn't happen in the books. I'm like, the show could change the books, and I thought maybe she was going to die right here. But it was such a powerful moment, and the way Naomi, like, they have that moment, that shared moment where she thanks her, and they really appreciate each other. Again, this is such a powerful moment in the midst of this awesome battle scene. But then it gets even better when you get Amos and Bobby storming the ring gate. Now, before we get into this whole thing, I do want to point out the Easter eggs. I don't know if you guys heard of the Easter eggs here. So if you look at the screen Naomi's looking at, she has a screen of all the Burton and Draper and all the different people names that are in the assault group. Every single name on that screen is a sci-fi reference to a sci-fi character. The ones I noticed immediately were the ones from Aliens. They had Ripley, Hudson, Hicks, and Vasquez. There's also like Jack O'Neill from Stargate. There's like a Duncan, Idaho reference from Dune, and like every single. And there's Sarah Connor and William Riker's actually one of them. I didn't notice that one. There's a Riker W. And every single one was a reference to sci-fi character. I just had to throw that out. That was absolutely amazing. Anyway,
that is awesome. It's funny because when I rewatched it, I was like, when they brought up the screen, I was like, I should pause this because I bet you there's probably like writers or cast members or something in there, the names, but I didn't have a lot of time. I had a long day at work, so I was kind of rushing and didn't have time to pause it. So I'm glad you got the chance to look. I will definitely go and recheck that because, yeah, I had a feeling they were going to hide something there, but that's a beautiful bit to do.
It reminded, like, the Aliens reference I thought were most spot on because it reminded me, because they did something similar in that movie where they had those people in the truck watching the screen with the different names up. So that's why I noticed the Aliens names first. The other ones I had to go online and find out about. And yes, Brandon mentions Jason Nismith from Galaxy Quest also on there. Absolutely love that. And also in the chat, as Chriso asking, I gotta say that you are probably jealous of the people who watch this episode having no knowledge of the books. Yeah, I'm a little jealous. I must admit, but I don't regret it. But so anyway, yes. So then we get the battle sequence of Bobby and Amos on the surface of the railguns attacking. This is like, as I said in this review, like the Amos going like 15 G's in his chair while like the world explodes around him. Reminded me of kind of like the D-Day sequence from Saving Private Ryan. It was like that hectic, all wars, hell, wars, crazy shit going around. And most of the people actually die before they get there, which is why Bobby has to resort to destroying the railguns, which kind of fucks them. But they were kind of out of option because hardly anyone survived, and the few that did survive get mowed down like by the assault teams, and so they were actually really screwed. And then you had that beautiful, like, I love that Bobby Draper moment. Just like it surfaces so many characters, the way she just goes out like yelling and just charging towards it and like launches her missiles, but then gets like continually shot at, and then Amos watches her flank, as she mentioned, and comes up and kills the attacker and just sits there and protects her until the Rossi shows up and kills the fuck out of the rest of the people. Absolutely amazing sequence. Rob, we'll start with you on this whole battle scene.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is, again, I don't know what they're talking about. If they don't like what do you, that this is, I'll say this, like, yeah, I definitely agree. The war feeling of D-Day, Saving Private Ryan, and him going down was really, really cool. I thought it might have gone on for just a tad too long, but otherwise fantastic. When you see all that stuff flying off of there and knowing that this is part of their plan and this is how they're doing it, it's such an Expanse thing to do. You don't see it coming though, but once you do see it, it makes sense. It's glorious. It's just, I freaking just love this show because of things like this, where they take, like, they need a plan and they like MacGyver the hell out of it. Like, this is really interesting stuff that they're doing. And then when they get down there, this was where I was like, oh, we really might not get everybody out of this. Like, but they all do it in such fashion that fits their characters so well. Amos, of course, is going down there because, yes, one moment it means he can give the mechanics position over to Clarissa, which is great. But again, it's like what they said twice in this, is that he's not going out getting shot in the back. And so when you get down there and he's the one who's like, of course, he's going to I'm going to do it. I'm going out there. And before he can even explain the plan, Bobby's already like, yeah, I'm just going to go do it because I've been wanting to do it since I got here. You know what I mean? Like, and the superhero pose that she gets to have, and everybody has to be losing it, because every time you see the power armor on and getting ready for action, you're going to see carnage. And instead, what we get is just her holding the line until there's nothing left to do but make that sacrifice, and then they wait that perfect beat where everything is like, okay, the guns are off, and then they just start in on her. And I mean, I was holding my breath for a second because I thought, oh, she just got annihilated. You know what I mean? And no, but it was going on for such an uncomfortable amount of time that when Amos finally jumps in there, I had forgotten what was going on. I'm just like, stop shooting her! She's on her back already.
Yeah,
But it's just so great the way that they care about each other, and again, just how much all these characters just work so well together, and just seeing everybody just work, everything just work, and we needed it to. We don't have a lot of great things happening in the world these days, so when you see a show come together like this and give you these satisfying moments that make your maybe terrible week a little bit better, especially it's in the middle of the week too. It's like Thursday night, you're having a bad week, you get to see this finale, especially like a palate cleanser off of Book of Boba Fett. Just me and Darrin's opinion on that. So it's just the resolution of it all, and just sorry. The fact that she's apologizing, it shows just again where their priorities are at too. It's like none of them would have rather died if there was any other choice. This was not just so for us, it's great to look at. For the characters, it's important.
So before we get to there, I want to jump in the chat real quick. A lot of good things going in the chat. We have Alyssa saying, well, there's not a shit ton of storage units, because that's what it looked like. Yeah, I mean, it was, but they were using the storage units as tiny little ships. Like, they gave them, like, in the books, they explained it more. They gave them, like, a little drive, not like a full Epstein drive, of course, but like a tiny little drive just to get them to the ring. And most of them had people in it, but some of them didn't. It kind of disguised it. There was also another Easter egg where one of the storage units had Mal Kwaski. I can't pronounce it, but Jules Pierre Mal's corporation had his symbol on it, which was another nice little Easter egg. Also, we got a super chat, another super chat for Chriso. Thank you so much once again, saying, I personally think that either Draper or Amos dying would balance the ending a little more, but I don't know how that would affect the story later on. Yeah, they already killed off a character who shouldn't have died, so I'm glad they didn't kill off another one who shouldn't have died. So I'm actually happy with that. Yeah, I think because Rob talked about Draper and how she kept getting shot, even though she survived, she was like bloodied and bruised, and I think that was still like really powerful. So we also got someone in the chat who, I'm sorry, I'm not going to butcher your name by trying to pronounce it, saying that the names weren't just science fiction characters, they were all badass science fiction characters like Bobby and Amos. Yeah, that's a good point, except how badass is Jason Nesmith from Galaxy Quest? I don't know. I mean, he was cool. I don't know if I'd say he was badass. He's a bit of a pansy. But anyway, most of them were badass, I would say. And then Norman Buckwell saying, I actually thought at one point Clarissa was going to die, since he only had 5 years left to live. The other potential suicide was, of course, Drummer, which, yeah, we already talked about that. But anyway, Darrin, let's get to you. Your thoughts on this whole battle sequence.
I'm going to go ahead and venture. I think that's O'Donohue Lab.
Okay.
Is the pronunciation on that.
I am historically terrible at pronouncing names, which is why I don't try sometimes.
Oh, no. On my show, I'm horrible. If I'm on somebody else's show, I seem to be okay. I think I can just have an extra moment to look and sort of let my brain break things down. Yeah, whoever says this was not a good sequence, go away. Yeah, see, I was thinking cargo containers when I saw it dump off. And I mean, again, it's beautiful. You just see it heading towards, and then the maneuvering thrusters, and then stop, and reverse, dump them all out. It was such a bit. And once I saw it, I was like, oh, that is very Belter. This is perfect. I mean, the fact that the Rossi was thrusting hidden in the in the profile of this giant water ship on the way there
Mm.
was just, again, a perfect little disguise.
But also such a great way to deliver the Rocinante, especially because of how we started with the Cant being the big
Yes.
ice water ship that our heroes are on, going all the way back to the beginning of the series.
That's a beautiful call up. Yeah, no. It is a remember the Cant all the way up until the very end. So I love that little bit. I love the dumping off, and everybody just kind of like holding on. What was the little bit between Bobby and Amos at the beginning? Like, don't think about it as a toilet or you'll pee. And he's like, well, nobody dies with an empty bladder. I mean, that's such a perfect Amos, straightforward statement to make. I love that interplay with the bit. And then, yeah, it's all sci-fi. It's all tension at this point. The Rossi's got to go. It's all the way at the edge of the ring. We're seeing the railgun hits blowing right past it. We do get to see that the armor works well. It does take one hit, which was very cool, but that creates the other problem that Clarissa has to go in, which again further reinforces now she's part of the crew. Naomi's, now concerned about her. It really just tightens all of that energy up. Of course, we're sure the Rossi's going to make it, but that doesn't make us feel any less tension in it. And the fact they can maintain that, I think, was very well. It was a simple goal. Get behind Medina Station. You can't shoot through your own station. And then we can go in and rescue. It was just a perfect sort of build-up. And then, yeah, Amos's whole bit coming down, you're right. In a way, it seemed like that almost went too long, but I love the spinning camera kept the chaos and that... Yeah, anybody could go at any moment here. Stuff blowing up around you. You're flying through, things going in all sorts of different directions. Yeah, it's a roll the dice if you make it. And then just a great final bit. The fact that neither Bobby nor Amos is ready to, wants to get shot in the back. They'd rather get shot in the face. And again, it sort of repeats the Walker drummer bit where who just goes first? Amos is already, all right, you guys watch me. We're gonna hey. That's perfect. And of course it's Bobby that's gonna go in the armor suit made of Mars, which I just freaking loved. Now Alyssa, I think, mentioned in the chat a little bit earlier about that they never gave us any resolution or statement about did Bobby go with Amos to the brothel with him or with him?
Yeah.
To me, this is why you don't answer the question. Because we would always be thinking, and I think some of us may, is Amos going after Bobby because they got kind of a thing? He does kind of, cover over or anything like that. And that's totally not it. I mean, that's not how I see it. I think regardless of whether she went or not, they went or not, this would all be happening the same way. And I think leaving that unknown, I think it's better, because I think having any sort of solution would change an interpretation of this particular scene. And this is reinforcing everything we've seen in the beginning. These are the people you fight for, the ones who have your back. Yes. Or will use their back to protect you while they're getting shot because of space marines and stuff. And yeah, Rossi just mowing them down finally after it's all done. It's just, that's the topper.
I will respectfully disagree with you, Darrin. I do want to know if they actually get hooked up. And I don't, for me anyway, wouldn't detract, because I would never assume he's just doing it because he's catching feelings for it. No, it's because even if they did hook up, it still doesn't take away that it's the camaraderie of the brothers in arms, of being out, being part of the family, and being in the shit together. That's the main and the bond that they earned in that way. But I just want to know, goddammit,
what happens in the foxhole stays in the foxhole.
But Alyssa says that she's gonna just assume that it happened anyway, regardless of what the show says. Which
That's
is
fair. I think that's fair.
totally fair. Also, another super chat. Thank you so much. This coming from Dana, saying, "Lovely discussion, wonderful show. Leave it to the imagination." Absolutely. So great. Yeah, Alyssa says, "Mark, they did it. Damn it, the show never said otherwise, so they did it. As far as I'm concerned."
The Expanse. The Expanse after dark.
Expanse. Secrets.
Come watch our new show at 2 a.m.
But yeah, God, yeah. So this sequence was absolutely amazing, and I love how when the Rossi shows up and saves the day, and Amos like, "Fuck yeah, Rossi!" Like, nice one. But then Bobby's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I screwed us. I destroyed the railguns." Which is, yeah, I mean, she had to, though. They would have been dead otherwise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, I also wanted to let in before the whole thing started off when they were getting their odds. And Amos compares, he goes, "Oh, it's better than Russian roulette. Is that a casino game?" It's like,
yes.
Kinda. Just one of those just perfect, simple Amos exchanges that was awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing. Now I want to move over, and we kind of touched on this a lot, so we can just touch on it very briefly. The scenes we get with Marco on his way to the ring gate, where Duarte, says, "You're on your own." Like, that was kind of nice. Man, we kind of already touched on that, but then and also touched on a bit how Philip's reaction to Rosenfeld dying, and Marco's just like, "Well, that's just how it goes. She died for her cause," and I don't think Marco is a complete and utter narcissist in this point. He's just more of a loyalist, or I don't know how to phrase it, but he did say, like, when Philip's like, "It could have just as easily been me," and Marco's like, "And me, it could have just as easily been me as well." But I think this is when Philip totally and true was like done with Marco's shit, and especially his reaction to Rosenfeld's death kind of was like the nail in the coffin here. And then we get the huge Marco speech for the Pauta Loda. This is like the weak sauce failure version of Drummer's Belta Loader speech in season 3. Like, that was like, "Pauta Loda, yeah!" You want to get up and cheer when you see these people doing it. It's like, "Oh, shut up." This is Marco being a stupid narcissist. But you could tell. You could see Philip's reaction of definitely he was not into this at all. Now we'll get more into what Philip does later on, because that's revealed later on. But anyway, any thoughts on this Marco stuff? Rob, we'll start with you this time.
Well, everybody, I think you guys know that like the Marco and Philip stuff are like my least favorite things going into this. But at least this had this was again important for Philip's character. Even though, I know I've said that I really just want both of Philip and Marco to die at this point, because I just don't really care about their characters as much as I like their plan. But that's the reality, is that this character needed, that's the arc he's having. It's already done. They're not going to change it. So I liked, it fits. I like what they did. Marco's speech though felt like he knows, right? Does everybody else know that nobody else is coming? Or is he the only one privy to that information? Because that's the kind of speech that feels like I have to convince myself as much as I've got to convince my people that we're going to be doing this. And it does. It kind of feels like a sad version of the other thing, which is just like all these people are cheering, but it's not that many. It's just a few. Like, he just like, you better be cheering over there. You know what I mean? Like, I'll send you guys out. I'll stage all of you. You don't start saying Belta loud. I mean, it's just so bad. And even Philip sitting there like, and for all we know, that was going to be the last look of Philip, is him just sitting there like, "Gotta listen to my dad going on again." How great he is and how little he cares about any of us at the same time. But again, it's a good scene, but like, just die already. You know. You died last. To me, you died last year, and you just you just keep coming back. Like, oh, kill this guy already.
Well, I do want to chime in that Marco's whole speech is like, oh, we're going to show the others, we will defeat them. But what he's actually talking about is just prolonging. And this is what they really laid out in the previous episode. He's talking about prolonging this war for generations. He's not going to win. He's just going to create more bloodshed over a longer period of time and just draw things out. But once he does get to Medina, he would have been like safe and wouldn't have been able to rebuild and everything. So he does have right to be confident, but he totally exaggerates, like in this speech, what they would accomplish.
I did want to comment just quickly on the whether or not Amos and Bobby did it. If I think that if they did, there would have been a pile of people in that room. Along with a lot of knocked over and half empty wine bottles or whatever it is they drink. And I think people would have just done what they had to do in that pile and then walked away back to wherever they needed to go.
Yeah.
And everybody would just quietly go back to wherever they came from and no one would talk about it because whatever happens on that station stays on the station. Yeah. I think they all have the right kind of disconnect and the attitude for it. This is we who are about to die. We salute you. We're going to enjoy ourselves for one night. And I think there's no walk of shame in this situation. It's just a bunch of people that are ready to make bad choices together.
Yeah, they shut that brothel down. Okay. You know they did. They shut the place down. Yeah, this was a fun little bit. It was pretty much, the Marco or Philip finally sees through Marco exchange, and I think that was the great little bit as he's bringing up all of Rosenfeld's death and seeing how everybody is cast aside. It's all for whatever Marco is going for whatever Marco wants. And when Marco finally turns to him, he says, "You still can't see what you've been given." I love that moment because I think that was the line right there where Philip just realizes that it's all his dad is all about his dad. That's all that's there. That's all this. The rest of us are just satellites that are feeding in. I mean, heck, he just says, "Yeah, if you died, you would have lost a part of myself." But I would have gone on being strong because that's what leaders have to do. And I think that was the perfect little moment. And while I half expected, maybe does Philip just stab his dad right here? Is he the one that takes him out? Is that how it ends? I gotta say, ultimately, I really liked the choices that they made for how they did end this. So we can start moving towards that. The speech, yeah, who cares about the speech?
So I got yet another super chat from Chris. So thank you so much. Saying that there is some irony in that Kamina was the reason Marco was alive, and now she ends up being in charge. I mean, come on, be a little easier on her. That was a huge mistake. She paid for it. She really regretted it, but drummer's awesome otherwise. So I think maybe you could say it was a bit of irony that she should have killed him, but she was kind of playing politics there, and that's a mistake she never made again. So I think she learned from her mistakes.
Consequences of choices. It just makes your character more powerful later.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the end of the war. So I'm going to bring up the one complaint I had about this episode. It's a very minor complaint. Like it didn't like ruin the episode or anything. It's just something very minor for me. But and this is probably coming from a snooty book reader's perspective, is that we in the novels we got a whole couple chapters, 2 or 3 chapters of them feeling that the situation is hopeless, that they're lost, they're fucked, Marco and his fleet's going to come. There's absolutely no way out of it. So the fact that they went through this in one scene, it felt a bit rushed to me. Some people were complaining the episode felt rushed or the season felt rushed. I completely disagree. But this is the one scene where I felt yeah, maybe. Okay, this is the one scene I felt like maybe they should have ditched the Laconia stuff and spent more time to stretch out this moment where kind of a Two Towers moment where like we're all fucked, we're all gonna die, because you can get some really great character moments out of that, and I think it does really help build tension. And then finally, and then later, after like they're pondering their deaths, Naomi's like, "Oh, I got a way out." so that is my one tiny complaint about this episode. But other than that, like, I love how they, I do like this conversation though, the way, they're talking about running, and then Amos is like, "Wait a second, does anyone really want to cut and run?" And like, nah. It's like, I don't care if I die, I just want to try to take Marco with me. And Holden's like, "Yes, we're definitely going to do that." And so it was kind of a nice moment there. But then, of course, Naomi does realize that, hey, we actually, we learned this thing that if we put all this mass and energy into the ring gates, it could wake up the aliens that kill people, and we can do that right before Marco comes to the green gate to ensure that they wake up and kill him. And of course, and I like the ominous about this, because this is something that, and I think this is actually a great character moment for Holden that he has to overcome, because he's terrified and he's had a lot of trauma associated with protomolecule and these alien shit, and so that he is scared. He's like, what if they don't go back to sleep? What if they stay awake? It's a very risky thing for them to use them as a weapon against Marco, but ultimately decide it's the only shot they got. It's the only chance to survive. It's the only way of defeating Marco and ending this war now. So they're risking ballsy enough, and they take this shot. And I do kind of love the way that Marco can just see it coming. This was a change from the books, and at first I was kind of disappointed. I kind of wanted him to like die mid-chant and going, "Marco, mine!" and suddenly get killed. But it was actually kind of cool the way he was like, "Veer off!" and started freaking out, and then and seeing him like the red aliens like completely eat him alive. To me, that was so damn satisfying. I thought it was a great way, and plus the fact that Naomi is the one who pushed the trigger, that she's the one that put it into Marco. Now, of course, there's the sad part to that, is that she believed that she killed Philip, and it was again such a heart-wrenching moment. I think this is one of the great acting moments of the moment, the way she's like screamed after that. And like when they showed that, when she was about to push that button, she had that flat, they showed the flash of Philip as a baby. I was just like, really just, it hit me. And that she was able to push it anyway and then face the consequences of it. It was just really speaks to her character, and it's just an amazing moment. It was an amazing moment. But anyway, Darren, let's get your thoughts on this first.
Yeah, maybe we'll start with the end part and work backwards, because the Naomi bit, so strong that she's the one that has to hit that we do get that little flashback, little baby Philip moment. Even watching it second time before here, I was starting to tear up again. And the emotional hit that we get, that awesome bit that Marco does see it coming just before. So he does have that moment of, "Oh no," as opposed to just being taken out, does sort of make it a little bit of a relish. I think it was a little bit more enjoyable that way. I think an explosion would have been too quick.
Yeah.
I need that stretched out just a little bit. At least know that you're going to be all messed up and you've done it yourself, which is also a good reason why it was a bad idea for Holden to want to share this knowledge with Marco earlier. That was definitely a bad choice. And I'm glad that Avasarala stopped him from doing that.
Yeah.
But the fact that then we do get that emotional reaction from Naomi, both in the seat, that scream, and then obviously collapsing against Holden. And again, nothing is said. You don't need any dialogue. You don't need to tell me how I'm supposed to feel. You don't need to tell me how she's feeling. She did it. we got a beautiful shot of the horror of what needed to happen and the cost that it had for and the pain that she's going to feel for it and the sacrifice she was willing to make because it had to happen. And all of that was done with a shot and a reaction and a moment. And that's storytelling at its best. Show me, don't tell me, please. Thank you. Yeah. So that was awesome. And yeah, I didn't know there was so much rush because I felt that all these things were happening very quickly, that this was boom, boom. We didn't have any time. So I didn't have any feeling that this was a necessarily kind of rushed thing personally, because again, I didn't read the books or anything like that. So I had nothing on that. Yes, if you're going to spend more time, this would have been the time that you kick the Laconia stuff and put that extra 5 minutes right here. Where you could have a little bit, maybe do have a little moment for Holden weighing that moment of like, this is the stuff that scares the crap out of me that nobody else has really seen. And this is really a bad idea and you don't want to do it. Yeah. On the other hand, that might have dragged things a little bit too. And to just go, this is the choice we have to make. We all know the cost of it. Let's just do it. I think, to me at least, carried this moment well enough.
Now, Darrin, I do have to mention in last week's discussion, you said something like, I hope Marco doesn't get killed by the angry aliens. That would be really disappointing. And I was like, oh, shit, does that mean he's not going to like it? I was like, I try to keep my poker face on.
Sure. No, and like I mentioned before, this is the change because it's not a out of nowhere, he's just going, and it's not a Deus Ex Machina in any type of way. Yes, it's not just a hand of God that just fixes things for everyone. They make the choice. They see the plan. They realize where they're at. Naomi sees, we lost a couple of the containers in transit. We've got to be close. If we push something through it, if we give us all, and says every round, every missile, every ship, everything that we got on this one chance, if it doesn't work, there's no other opportunity. To me, that's earning it. Yes. You have now earned this. You are now using this information to your advantage, and you have found a way in order to do a thing. And again, you get to surprise the crap out of Marco. So, I mean, double bonus right there. But no, this is how you do something like that correctly, in my mind. And it makes sense why we've had these hints and stories throughout the season. I kept feeling, this is hinting towards story to come. And no, we use it here, which is, of course, the way that you should properly introduce and use story elements. Sprinkle it throughout the reason, so when they come up with the solution at the end, it's not a giant surprise or out of nowhere. It makes sense why they would have this knowledge and be willing to take this chance.
Brandon House in the chat saying you've got a poker face. Well, not a very good one, but I had to try to practice. Anyway, also another super chat from Krista. Thank you so much. Saying, what do you think the UN would have done if they found out Holden disabled the nuke? I don't think he would. I think he would probably be in prison, honestly. Like, he definitely would have been sent out as part of the fleet, which would have been a huge mistake. So I'm glad they didn't find out. I think that things would have been worse for them. And then the space people get to see you in the chat saying, I watched Marco get erased about 10 times. It's just so satisfying. And David also in the chat points out Naomi's scream was improv, according to Dom Tipper. And I did see that interview and her saying that was an improv on her. And Stephen Strait, who plays Holden, talked about how it, like, when they were filming that, he wasn't expecting it, and he almost actually cried, even though he was off screen. He cried when she did that because it was so good. It's like, that's great fucking filmmaking for you right there. Anyway, Rob, let's get your thoughts on this scene.
I'm going to start at the beginning since he started at the end. So the scene, and I'm not going to rehash the same thing. What I liked was when they're talking about, do we really want to cut and run? I loved Bobby's reaction because it was hard not to look at her anyway, because of how well they did the makeup on her to make her look just really tore up from the floor up. And her, just that facial expression of, like, what do you think my aunt, like, you know what I mean? Like, What else do I got to do? We're here. Like, I really love that reaction. But I love, again, we need that last scene of, if you guys don't want to do this, all that stuff. But we talk about Drummer, we talk about Amos, we talk about, Clarissa, we talk about Marco, and we've talked about all these people. We don't talk enough about like Holden. We don't talk enough about Naomi. And Naomi has had some of the best stuff in the last 2 seasons, as far as like emotional acting, being put through the ringer as a mother. And we get to see that, like, where it really had to naturally go, and they did it so well. Like you said, there's a lot of the best stuff that we talk about is with no dialogue or just with eyes or facial expressions. All that great work that comes across from great writing and great acting. And Dominic Tipper, has just been a powerhouse. I mean, this is a show where so much of what is going on around them is not happening. They have to imagine all of this. So, I mean, imagining that she had to jump from a ship, and now she's sitting in a cockpit and having to pretend to kill her son and her ex, and just to end this finally, and that suffering of, like, as matter how right this decision is, she's a good person. First off, this would be agonizing either way, just to end a bunch of people's lives, to sacrifice, whatever. But knowing that it's your kid and you did everything you could, but even in that moment, she's thinking, did I really, all that stuff that a parent would be thinking. And then just him, the veer off and everything. The thing that I thought of when they went through, though, was it looked like somebody spilled, like at the movies when they show pop commercials and all the way they show soda getting poured and everything in the glass. It looked like somebody spilled all of those commercials into the scene of, like, that dissolve. Just felt like I was watching pop get shot around the screen from multiple directions. It was really interesting. And I agree that like any good villain or any villain we despise, we want to see them suffer. But it's the reason that I love how he went is because if you could say, like, well, this might be an anticlimactic way of doing things. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is as to quote Jesse Pinkman, science bitches. Okay? They didn't do the high flashy thing. They didn't. We've already seen explosions and the big stuff, all that stuff. No, in fact, what we do is we do the smart thing. We pull the Walter White. We're going to use some crazy thing that nobody's thinking of to stop this guy. And that's great. That is original. That is not just letting us have that thing that we think we want. No, they give us something that's even, greater. When, like if you think about like a character like Joffrey, right? Like we all wanted him to be ripped apart by dogs and we wanted to see every minute of it. But that's just, if you do it smart, you will always trump the visceral. Like you will always hit people and go, that's the right way to do it. That's the more clever way to do it. That's the more ironic or whatever fitting way to do it. And they nailed it here in this really smart way of like solving one problem though and creating possibly another one, which is another thing that a lot of shows do. It's every medium to figure out, like it's in books, comics, shows, movies. They always do that, and again, but they do it because it's helps further the story along. It helps us get to where we're going to go later. I'm assuming, you know what I mean, and it gives us a really crazy way for Marco. Didn't think he was going out like this. This is the as great as his plans were. He didn't see them. It's his ex that came up with the gave that idea. Like, how smart is she? And again, as much as sometimes I disagree with some of the ways that some of the characters do things in this, just whatever. Naomi's ideas are always just so great, and they're always crazy. And if you really think about that, like as much as they all try to keep each other alive, it's like what Clarissa says, for all the times you guys are, you're trying to avoid being heroes. You guys, you do it a lot, but it's the whole group. Everybody's got that little bit of crazy in them when it comes to getting something done. And Naomi coming up with this was just excellent. I'm glad it was her that had this moment, because it was also just even more emotionally impactful, because I just came up with the idea to kill my son.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think it actually helps that Marco saw it coming. Even like for a split second where there was nothing he can do about it, that he knew, he died knowing that Naomi got the better of him, or at least the roast nothing got the better of him. And that was actually really sad. So I think that added to the satisfaction again. Also, I wanted to mention, because I talked about how I had to put on the poker face, that I also had to do earlier one of my episode 2 or 3 discussions of the season, because we were talking when Holden first started investigating the whole ring space with the aliens. I remember Darrin and Alyssa talking about, oh yeah, how this is going to come up and setting up for future books. And I was like, we're actually setting up for this season. I didn't want to say anything.
That was a good poker face there.
But yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into the forming of the Transport Union. Now this we had all the drummer, and I love how I can't remember their names, like Bendrani or something, the belter who was on series, sitting next to drummer, and also Alvis Rala, and of course we get Martian Prime Minister. Now this scene kind of reminded me a little bit of the scene in the finale of Game of Thrones, where they had all the surviving members of the council deciding who the king is, except of course the major difference is this scene doesn't suck. It was actually done correctly, and they don't make a ludicrous person king or whatever. They make the correct person. Actually, they make the incorrect person king, but that leads to the correct person becoming king. And it's such a good, powerful scene. Now, I did write down a quote that I absolutely loved from this scene, when Alvis Sarala kept trying to push for, look, let's do this transport union, but it needs to be a combination of Earth, Mars, and the belt. It can't just be the belt. We have to be in it together. And of course, the Martian Prime Minister is being an even bigger asshole. Alvis Sarala had to step him back. He's like, I would get ejected from Parliament for even suggesting this or whatever. And then Drummer's response, which I love, she says, Belters are promised the future as long as it remains convenient. We're given a voice so long as the inners control the comm. We have a vote so long as we can be voted down. And I thought that was so powerful. I absolutely loved that. And Holden supported her. And they were like, they at first rejected him. Are you actually agreeing with her? He's like, she's right. Like, the belt you can't just pay lip service. You actually physically have to show trust. And the other great thing is, Alvis Sarala kept saying, oh, you can trust us, And the drummer's like, no, I'm telling you, you can trust me. I promise to treat you fairly. You can trust me. Like, that was also amazing. But of course, it wasn't politically viable, given what the Martian Prime Minister said. It wasn't viable for them to actually do what Drummer wanted, but Holden found a way to sort of slip it in using his politics. And I love how when Alvis Sarala is like, oh, someone should be the president who's been shown to be a friend to the belt, who's friendly with Earth and Mars, has a history of being apolitical, and everyone in the room stares at Holden. He's like, wow. I absolutely love that. But of course, the better moment was the inauguration speech, it was so awesome, because this is Holden outfoxing Alvis Sarala, being even more politically savvy than her, and I love how she saw it coming. She's like, "Don't you fucking do it!" It was just so powerful. She's like, he was like, "Look, I'm an outsider. I'm always going to be an outsider. I love the belt. The belt supports me, but I will never be a belter. So that I'm not fit to be this. So I'm going to step down. The community drummer is going to be the president," which stays true to your screen name last episode. Darrin was the drummer for Belter President. I'm like, oh, he's really going to like the next week's episode. and God damn it, I love how Avasarala is you self-righteous little shit and really pissed off. She's like, I'm gonna undo this, and he's like, don't even try. You know that this is the only way for it to work, and she does, and that's why she, eventually shakes his hand and smiles, like, I hope you're right, because she knows that he's right, but it just wasn't politically viable for her to do this. But Holden found a way to make it happen, and that's why, God damn it, I think this epilogue, if you want to call it, the cleanup after the battle sequence, like, this is more than that to me. This was like a beautiful conclusion. So Rob, let's start with you this time on what you felt of this whole thing.
I really dug this, and I think that the whole thing with what Holden does and Avasarala's response, I mean, they could have turned that and made it her idea. She could have walked up to him and said, I think they bought it. Do you know what I mean? They could have had that thing where they were all kind of in on it together, where it's like we needed to make it look good. But instead, what it does is it gives us more insight into how Holden's growing as a character and where he came from. The guy who he was just living by the seat of his pants on the Kent. He wasn't taking anything too seriously. And now he's sitting there running, the president of a whole independent thing that's going to change everything. Like, that's nuts. And yet still he found a better way, they were able to use what they talked about, him and his diplomacy of working with groups that are difficult. And he just flips it on everybody and shows how, again, it's just we keep gushing about it, and I'm going to keep saying it. This show is so fucking good at giving me stuff that I didn't even know I wanted. Yeah. That's good. I used to think that when I was a waiter. I always used to love being able to be the kind of waiter who knew what a customer wanted before they had to ask for it. And that's what this show does all the time. And it's going to be hard not having it in as big a doses as we get every year watching this, because there's just not enough shows like this. And then the drummer stuff, when she talked about why is your word good enough for me but my word not good enough for you, that whole thing where she's just sitting there oh my god, energy, baby, everything. sorry I got to stop with that. Every time I think about Kara G, I freak out. Okay. But it was just, no, I mean, this needed to happen. This needed to be said. And again, I almost you look at Holden and he's like, fuck, they're going to make me say it. I'm like, he's looking around somebody be the smart one here. And no, he's the one who has to bluntly tell them, you just keep lying to these people. Avasarala is great, but they get everybody behind these tables when it's time to start divvying up the pie. Again, it's always they fall back into those old patterns, and it's no, this is where the pattern ends. It has to end, and I can tell that the only way to do it is through subterfuge. And so, as much as I would have part of me would have liked her being in on the plan, it's more important for all these characters to show that they grew to work with each other so that they could do something that needed to happen. They made it happen. And unfortunately, I mean, I wish that was more grounded in reality, but it's great for the show. It's what we needed for the show. It's what the universe of the Expanse needed to move forward. Because we have to, if you're going to have more of this, we can't just keep having them, we need to deal with this problem, but there's a billion belters fighting with us about something else. We can't keep going down this road. Story-wise, this has to be resolved. And this was a perfect Expanse way to do it. And again, smart, not dumb. And I think a lot of these people who have these complaints, I used the word dumb in that last sentence. Okay. And I don't mean that mean that, but I think some people just have simpler, they just want to see the goddamn explosion, man. So, if you turn into the Expanse for Michael Bay level lunacy, you're watching the wrong show. What we have here is a show that uses the action uh, sparingly, and when it's done right, and it fits and it's natural. And the big stuff is always going to be the human relationships, the writing, and getting all that right. And they nail it here. And I loved seeing Holden give like such a grown up sounding speech um, in front of everybody. And honestly, not knowing how this was going to go, I didn't see him giving it up. I didn't see this coming at all. And drummer just flawlessly stepping in. Okay. Let's bring it in one at a time. And it's all done perfectly. And just the small detail of him saying, I need a few things in writing. Thank you. And now we know exactly what they were, like what those little details were. Somebody should have been thinking about that, though, like some of those little details, because it had to be like, I get to choose my successor, right? That kind of thing. And somebody should have been like, well, who would be, because in our world, there'd be like people that would make a list of going till the end of time of who would take over somebody's role somewhere. Doesn't matter if you're a comptroller or the president. Okay. Yeah. So, but it all worked in the end, and again, just done in the way that only the Expanse does.
Now I have to say one thing I forgot to mention was that another like moment that really got me was that nod of respect that drummer gives Holden after Holden steps down. Like that was just so powerful to see that they were sort of, and to see like Michio and Joseph in the audience go, yeah, cheering her as she gave me, like, that was amazing too. Now I did real quick want to point out in the chat that Brandon says being called a duplicitous little shit by Avasarala is one hell of a compliment. And also has been pointing out that that's actually huge character development for Holden, who usually is all about doing the right thing and playing by the rules. The fact that he could be so sly and deceptive like that is actually in order to get the right thing accomplished. Shows how much his character has grown. Okay, one last thing, Darrin. Before we move on, we got another super chat from Krista. This time $20. Thank you so much, Krista. You donated a lot. I very much appreciate it for your generosity. Saying, loved watching all of your Expanse reviews. After watching each episode, I'm going to miss watching reviews and reactions to the show from your channel. Thanks for always giving these reviews. You're awesome. Well, thank you so much. Very, very kind words. I do try, and I have a few more Expanse videos coming, which I'll get to at the end of this video, so don't you worry. Anyway, Darrin, let's get to you. Your thoughts on this whole sequence.
Yeah, no, I was just amazed with Rob's comments. I'm like, okay, so you're saying that these characters are different from where they started with different viewpoints, but seem like a natural evolution of those viewpoints. Yeah. That doesn't happen in a lot of shows, folks. So yes, this is what good writing actually does, which is why this is all amazing. Yeah, you guys have hit on both. My favorite line in this wasn't so much of the speech, but the one before is when Drummer's just looking and saying, you know, I'll treat you fair. You can trust me. I'll give you this, or I'll give you my word. I'll give you this. I'll give you my word. How come my word isn't good enough, but your word is? I mean, it was really just that perfect tear down of where the belt is and why Holden had to do this thing. And yes, it was a perfect little bit when they're like, we need somebody everyone trusts. It's like, no, not me. Don't look at me. And it was like, well, is this what happens to Holden? He becomes the president of the transport union, and then he's got an office. You can't take him off the ship, which is again why the resignation was so perfect, because Holden is meant to be on the Rossi as much as Kirk is meant to be on the Enterprise. Holden is meant to be on the Rossi. Okay, with that crew, with that group. And so yeah, it was I love the maneuverability. I love kind of messing with Avasarala, but yeah, she knew it had to go here. Would she have done this in episode 1? Of course not. She was hanging a belter from hooks to try and get information. Now she knows the smartest thing is to put Drummer in charge. These are where the characters go. This is, Holden, who last episode, if you guys watched the X-Ray show, we could see one of the reasons he took the job on the Cant was because he had no responsibility. Hey, would you like a good paying job with free rent, free board, and little to no responsibility? Okay. And the last thing that he wants is to even be the XO on the ship. And at the end, he is heading the transport union and then stepping away from it because it is the right leadership thing to do. It's just again, we're going to keep just gushing over how well this is done, but it is also how much this pays off all the little seeds that have been laid throughout the show. None of this makes sense. None of this works without all the stuff that has come before it. And here it works quickly and succinctly because they don't need to dwell on any points. We know where everyone's coming from. They just need to make the moves, and we go, yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, very powerful ending. So now, let's go ahead and move over to the ending bits, where we see the Rossi writing off. It's what a perfect way to end the show, especially like Bobby Draper, the new pilot of the ship's finally officially joining the crew. And I love her little just fucking with them, like oops, like doing that, like it's so great. And now the one thing I was a bit questioning was the pin that Clarissa gave Amos. I was like, what is that? To me, that's a bit more of a deep cut. Like I don't know. I think some people become too fascinated with props. Apparently, Amos had always worn that throughout the show, but he lost it when he went to visit Clarissa in prison, and he had to give his jacket away to a guard and escape the hellscape of Apocalypse. And so Clarissa fashioned another one for him and one for herself. But it was still a nice moment. I still liked the bonding moment between them. And apparently there was a backstory, a kind of dark backstory about how he got that pendant that was in the comic that told of Amos's origin. So but I still, so I thought maybe that was a little bit of a deep cut because I didn't recognize it, but it was still, I get the gist of the scene. Having the two of them bond and the two of them be a team was absolutely amazing. And I love how it's like tradition whenever there's a grand epic Expanse episode that it ends with Naomi giving a speech and then playing beautiful music over that speech and having a montage of a sorts play over that speech. And I thought this one was probably the best one. Like this one, I thought it really hit me, even because it didn't really do a montage. She was her talking about how it's good to do the right thing, even if you don't know it's the right thing, because the point isn't you feeling good about yourself. The point is you helping other people. And she's saying maybe something you said to someone really stuck with them, and maybe it's going to make them change their mind and look at the world a different way. And while she's saying that, we see Philip actually leaving Adapella during Marcus Stupid's speech and writing and changing his name to Philip Nagata. And so it's obvious that what she's saying is actually speaking to him, that what she said to him changed his mind. What she said, his time she spent with him eventually got to him. And she never gets to know that. She never gets to know that she didn't actually kill her own son. She never gets to know that the good deed that she did paid off, because the point isn't her feeling good about herself. The point is the change that she did in Philip. And it was just such a great way to end the show. And plus having the bond between Naomi and Holden, which is the strength of the show. Someone in the chat mentioned that they're one of the greatest couples in fiction. I agree with that, because they're a strong, like, realistic couple. And to end the show on that with the Rosie sailing off and then playing a rendition of the opening Expanse music, to violins. I could not imagine a better way to end the show, or at least pause the show. Absolutely amazing. And of course, before we go, kick it back to you, more super chats. God, you guys are so generous. Thank you so much. We got a super chat from Christo saying, "R.I.P. Anderson Dawes. He would have been proud." Yes, absolutely. And I love how that's why I like the inclusion of the Mandrani character, because they were kind of a stand-in for Dawes, because they were said to be someone who supported Dawes, who was a Dawes supporter. So I did like that, even though they couldn't get. God, I keep blanking on his name, but the great actor guy who played Dawes is unavailable.
Jared Harris.
Jared Harris.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it would have been nice to have him, but he apparently wanted to do the show, but his schedule wouldn't allow it. So, but I still like the shout outs, and of course, dollar super chat from Dana again. Rob saying word. Anyway,
word.
So, yeah,
all the time actually. I'm bringing it back.
So, yeah, Rob, well, let's start with you this time. What were your feelings on this send-off?
I really tried to think of it like properly, as like knowing that this is not the end. Like, this is a end for an arc, because this could be looked at like, I mean, this is one of the quietest, more, I think it's almost like comforting that how it ends, because it doesn't feel like an end. It's just more of them being themselves. You know what I mean? Like but it's after the event, and now they get to breathe, and to get to go and grow and become whatever they're going to become next. And even with Clarissa and Amos, which is just them exchanging, this thing, it just shows their bond and how close they're going to be, and how close they're probably going to get later. And there were no like final stamps on anything. It just felt like Amos and them are in this room, and Holden and Naomi are in this room, and Bobby's doing her thing, and it's comforting to know that they're out there. It doesn't feel like they're not, like it's that they're not still going, that there isn't still more to come. I like how they don't make us feel like we're saying goodbye. But that last couple of shots of them really close together and holding, like their heads against each other. And I think everybody that was watching it for the first time felt like that's where they wanted to be too, is right there close to them. All of us all together, as they go off into space, waiting for the next adventure or whenever that will be. And it's just really, really lovely. And they got such great chemistry. Those two are just unbelievable. And Hearst just, I can't get over the fact that this show doesn't have any acting awards, like awards practically, period. But
that's just proof that award shows are bullshit.
The whole other video out there. The Phillips stuff. Now, this is where again, I've said I just wanted that character dead. But the thing is like, in real life, people get away with things. They sneak off. They escape justice. But the thing they can never escape is what they did in their own consciences. And so he might not know that she's alive, and she might not know that he's alive, and maybe they'll meet each other again or whatever. But he's got to live with what he did. He's got to live with what he saw and all the hurt that came from everything. And now all of this just was because we don't talk to each other. We don't communicate. We don't treat each other fairly, and all these things come. And so in the end, I mean, I like that Philip got away, even though ordinarily I would want to see this character suffer, but he's already suffering. He's going to suffer every day for the rest of his life. And as satisfying as it might be to take revenge on the people who have done us wrong, it's an even greater thing when you do change them, like they say, whether you even know it or not. So just so fitting. And again, an ending that can only be done by shows like this, that take every bit of it seriously and treat these characters like with the respect that the audience has been sitting there cheering for them or jeering at them for 6 years, and still treat them like human beings and not just caricatures.
Absolutely. Another super chat in from Chris O saying protomolecule sample out there. Yeah, let's not worry about that for now. Let's enjoy the moment. Like, like that was sort of a great ending. It was like, oh, there's still more stories, there's still threats out there, but saying no, let's just enjoy the moment. Again, the nice way to end the episode. Anyway, Darren, let's get to you. Your thoughts
Yeah.
on this.
Also as someone who wasn't a huge Philip fan at all, really through these past couple of seasons, and kind of annoyed me in a lot of ways. I'm a killer for a redemption story. And I liked where he was going with this. It's funny because when Marco died, I was very obvious to the point that I hadn't seen Philip for a bit. It was like, you'd be right there, or had that some look or whatever. It's you would get something. So the fact that they do follow this up, and we find out there that after the speech, he was like, screw this, I am out. And he takes one of the repair skiffs, I think, to take off. And then does the change to Philip Nagata. Was just perfect. And yes, Brandon Howes, brother in spirit. Appreciate what he is doing there. And I have to agree with I think it was Silver Scale, who was the one that had mentioned that Naomi and Holden were such an awesome couple, and I have to completely agree with that. Their chemistry has always been great. But yeah, I love that ending, and I love the fact that you don't know. Does she ever learn? Does she not? I mean, obviously, it sort of implies that he can't hang around. He's probably going to the gate to somewhere. I mean, Philip Inaros might stand out. He might raise some questions. So he definitely wants to get probably as far away as possible. Just run that little repair skiff. It's Nagata Repairs. That's going to be his new job. But the fact that she does make that statement, and it does end up having that effect to it. I mean, it is, as Rob mentioned, one of those endings that you can only get on a show like this that takes the time and trust the actors, trust the audience, trust the writers to be able to convey these stories with emotion, but not a heavy-handedness. And the fact that they do end the way they do does feel like there's more adventures coming. Could it be the ending? Yes. Could there be more coming? But even as he is saying, it's like, yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of ships going through. Could probably, pirates. We could probably do some security detail. And hey, we could actually probably get there's a consultant job on one of the planets. And as Chriso mentions, a protomolecule out there. I got to figure. I'm just like, whoa. But we just enjoy this moment right now, just together. I think it's a perfect way with the audience who is like, but of all these other things, like, yeah. Let's just enjoy this moment right now and appreciate the journey that we've gone on before we have to go in anywhere else. I think it is a beautiful way to end it. I always hate shows that do the wrap up of like, and so died, and this person went off here. It's like, no. Let us, the audience, appreciate, as Rob said, that the characters are still out there. They're still doing stuff. They could still jump in if something goes wrong. I like that being left. And again, hope that there is more books to come soon.
You know what I think this ending reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of another one of my favorite series finales of all time, The Next Generation final episode, All Good Things.
All Good Things. Oh, yes.
That ends on with them playing poker as a
I should have done this a long time ago.
And it zooms out with the ship, because that was a great way to wrap up these characters' ending, but it wasn't the end. It wasn't the last time we saw these characters. We saw them come back in movies. So I think, so it reminded me a lot of that. I absolutely loved it for it. A couple things in the chat wanted to jump in on. Some issues bringing it up here. Trying to come back up. Sorry, give me a second. So Silver Scale brings up a really good point, saying, don't forget, though, that both Naomi and Philip were victims of abuse, even if he took so long to break away. In real life, it takes time, too. And yes, that is something that he's starting to realize that. And I think that came true when Mark was like, "Oh, we made this choice." And Philip's like, "Choice? When did I? I don't remember making a choice." So that is another really great point. And yeah, absolutely awesome. Now, Alyssa asks, so where does Philip go? If they do adapt the other books, will we ever hear from him again? Now, I do want to answer that. So I'm giving a warning because you never know. They might adapt these books later on. You might want to read them. Giving a spoiler warning now to mute it for a minute or two. I'm going to answer that question. And the answer is no. In the books, at least. We never hear from him. We never hear from Philip. I was actually expecting to hear from him in the final book, but we didn't. And seeing how they ended the scene with the show where Naomi says you never get to know, that strikes more true, knowing that we never know what happens to him. Which has its pros and cons, but that's unless the show, if they come back, they could always change it. But at least in the books, that's how it went down.
Very cool. Very cool.
So that's it for spoilers.
Yeah, I'm good with that being spoiled. I'm not attached either way. I think it was just, again, a nice thing. And obviously he's got to be gone. He's not going to be around the belt. He's got to go through a ring or something, jump on a ship and get going. Because though most people that would recognize him, I think, are dead at this point. So. Yeah.
Now, another couple super chats. Chris is being generous again, saying, I wish that Philip's exit would have caused some sort of damage to Marco's fleet in some way. I think it's nicer to have the just leaving quietly. Yeah, just the slipping out like, well, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. Kind of rather than having, because it's not really about exacting revenge or whatnot, but Marco gets his comeuppance anyway. Silver Scale super chat, thank you so much, saying I like the open-ended adventure too, but I'm going to read the books. LOL. Thanks for these chats, love them. Absolutely. And Lissa saying that's not necessarily a spoiler because, as you say, the show could always change that. Which is true.
And they do change things from our discussions on the book and the show. So it's kind of nice. It kind of keeps things a little up in the air, even if you have read the books, that they can shift things around.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and end this discussion. A really long discussion, but great discussion. Absolutely. Thank you to everyone for joining. So many people in the chat. It's great to see Alyssa, Brandon, Mike, Chriso. Thank you so much for all the super chats, Chriso. And we got Silver Scale. Dana, also thank you for your super chats. And series-ish. Deborah. I'm sure I'm forgetting something about a lot of people showing up. Thank you so much for showing up. And of course, thank you so much for my guests for showing up. It was a great discussion. Absolutely love it. Thank you guys so much. And everyone in the chat watching in the archives, definitely check out Harris Do It This Way. Definitely check out their channels. Definitely check out Smirking Reviews. Check out these reviews. Absolutely. So let's sign off here. Let's start with our special guest today, Rob. Where can people find you, and what are you up to?
I just want to quickly mention one of the comments Siri had on there about how he wished that Miller would show up at the end and be like, "Surprise, motherfucker!" And Miller was my favorite character. I am still got my Doors and Corners Miller I wear every time the Expanse is on. I would have liked to have seen that myself. Where you can find me right now, you can find me on Darrin's channel, where we're hanging out. We're having mild discussions about a certain other space series that it's just coffee talk, just the three guys, hanging out, talking, pleasantries about a galaxy far, far away. And that's kind of what I've just been doing, and I'm doing this. And I like I said, I do owe my fans, and people who subscribe to my channel, some videos for the Expanse and other stuff. And it's coming. I just need to get there. That's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, Smirking Reviews, check it out if you feel like it.
Also, real quick, another super chat from Chris saying, "This girl canceled our date. Better spend money here instead." Well, I'm glad you feel that way. Thank you so much. And Darrin.
Yeah, Mark, God, I have had such a blast going over this season. We've had such great discussions on The Expanse. It's really bummed me out. Just, I was hoping this was going to end with the tagline of "coming in 2023," but they're gonna tease us a little longer. I do have hope that we're going to be able to see more of this show, and thus we will be back here talking about more of The Expanse or the Babylon Ashes series or whatever they're going to end up calling it. It's been a blast really talking with you, and I'm glad Rob's been able to join us with this. So thank you so much, and thanks everyone in the chat. Silver Scale been very kind with comments. Everyone, it's been a lot of fun talking about this.
One last thing I forgot.
Yeah,
January 29th. 8 p.m. on my channel. Everybody here should be at my channel, Smirking Reviews, where we're going to be talking about all the entertainment from 2021, kind of a big catch up of what's the best, the worst, things you've been wanting to talk about, things that, you didn't get a chance to talk about on our channels. And we'd like to hear what we think of some of these things. And that's what we're going to be doing on the 29th, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time with hopefully more people. I think Alyssa might be there and Don. Willie from Don of Ice and Fire and Alyssa from Alyssa Jean Reviews. So check that out if you want to see more of us.
Yeah, that'll be a blast. What thing we probably won't be covering there is what we're currently covering on my channel, D's Reviews, which is, of course, Book of Boba Fett. Chapter 4 is next, I believe. Shoot Me More. Yeah, so if you guys are enjoying Book of Boba Fett, you probably don't want to come watch our reviews. It's been harsh lately. If you haven't, then come join, because
we might be talking about Peacemaker instead.
We might be talking about Peacemaker this week. I don't even know. It's been kind of a hate fest over there. So yeah, you can definitely check my reviews out in the archives there. See if you want to spend some time. But that's Thursday nights at 6:00 there. And as soon as that is done, I think Moon Knight's coming up end of February or something like that. So you'll see that on my channel as well. And again, that's D's Reviews. I'm also at Darrin Jakes on your favorite social media.
Now, I will say, Darrin, that I'm not huge into the Book of Boba Fett, but I've been enjoying it. I thought the last episode was pretty good, but I still really enjoyed watching your discussion. Like, oh my god, it's so terrible! It's making me stupid. It's really great ripping into the show, and I love the passion that you show.
It's a dynamic discussion. Yeah.
I just don't really care much about the show. I didn't expect much, and I didn't get much, so I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
That's the best way to approach it. I will tell you that.
So, as for me, my name is Mark. My channel is Enchantment of Eternity, and as I alluded to earlier, it's not my end of my coverage of The Expanse. I will be back here next week talking about Season 6 in its entirety with different special guests. We got my sister Alyssa from Alyssa Jean Reviews, and very special guest Josh, possibly Anna from Geek Siders, which I haven't had a live chat with them for several years. I did the first ever Expanse live chat with them on season 1 many years ago. They're the ones that got me into The Expanse, so it would be great joining them next week to talk about season 6 in its entirety and getting some different opinions on this season. And also I will do my own personal review of season 6 as a whole, which I will release sometime next week, as well as in a month, maybe a bit less than a month, I'm going to rank every single episode of The Expanse and put that out in probably what's going to be like a 3-hour long video, or however long it is, ranking every single episode of The Expanse, because, and I'm looking at it, and the bottom of my list is going to be a mediocre episode that's pretty good. Like, what a great show. That's at the bottom, and it's going to very quickly go into like great episodes. But yeah, so be sure to check out my channel for that. I also cover other shit like Star Trek, Star Wars, whatnot, whatever. Anyway, be sure to check me out. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for joining, and thank you all and we'll see you next time. Bye. See you later.
Well, this is the way you make a show.
Drummer for president. Drummer for president.
Drummer, be my wife.
It's